Hey everybody, how you doing? A long, cool woman in a black dress. Oh yes, got to love it. How are y'all? So good to see you. As I continue to put everything in order, now it is. All is right in the universe. There is calm, and there is, how should we say, as Tesla said, we are in pleasantness. I love that. So what's happening? Hello, David Castle. How are you? Hello, Posey. Good to see you. Deborah, thank you, all the moderators. David Barry, how are you? Good to see you, my good friend. Nina the Mystic. Good to see you, dear. Peter, good to see you, my friend. Carol. Uh, man, just beautiful, beautiful. Hey, Marsha. Love it, man. Vibe is good in here. So glad to see everyone. I hope that you're doing good. I am. And I noticed that we had one thumbs down. Listen, the topic that we're going to be dealing with, that is really that's a thumbs up, you know, and it's interesting. So Lynn and I was watching The Wizard of Oz. And when you put on different type of filters, whatever you're perceiving your reality to be, there's some stuff in that movie that so just a little tidbit, if you get a chance, watch it. So the wizard, when he's giving the scarecrow, he can't give him brains, so he gave him a degree. Do you know what the degree was? I'm going to see how many of you really ever really watched that. Um, the degree. The degree was in THC. I kid you not. It is an absolute fact. And I heard that. Lynn looked at me and she said, "Did he just say what I think he said?" And I said, "Yeah, he did." Well, THC is mind expanding, isn't it? Follow the yellow brick road. So favor and basto to everybody. Favor means that we're empowered to prosper, and we do. And happy birthday to anyone who is having one anniversary. Marsha, I think I am a pagan. I think we all are. If you're in here, Robert V, how you doing? Lucky Stone. So I understand there was some technical difficulties. I was tuning in to the Soul Tribe channel, and looks like I'll get the story from Trina. But wow, hey Gaia, how's it going? But yeah, in fact, what a great segue. Thank you, Marsha. So I put together this little presentation because we're going to read a great paper from uh, a professor, and she did such a great job. All right, now come on. There we go. So I think you could say that, in fact, give me 1 second here as he continues. There we go. Well, now I'm getting ahead of myself. Would you slow down, Steiger? I love meeting myself coming and going. Pagan, Gnosis, pagan. I mean, paganism. Well, in fact, I can say this with complete certainty because I'm not the one who proved it. There's others who were before me. Virtually every religion on the planet today has paganism in them. Now, that's a powerful statement, particularly Christianity. Christianity is heavily influenced by paganism. And what we're going to find out what the definition means. Many of you already know it, but we're studying the Gnosis, the Gnostic texts, Gnosticism. And, if you are a Gnostic, it's eventually going to lead you to paganism. Why? Well, because it's very simple. I love how this word has morphed over the millennia. Particularly what we would call, postmodern, Latin, pagos, country, district. What pagus do you live in? That went over then to Paganus, which is villager or rustic. And I can say this, that a villager is just a citizen. Rustic, that's a whole motif. I mean, you can pay big bucks to get a rustic motif. Then came this thing called Christianity. And any of you, I really do recommend Not in His Image by John Alash. I'm going to try to get him on here. This is one, it's well worth it to be in your library. So they took the word and made it into something that was completely, it was so undefining. It was, listen, if you lived in a village, well, okay, fine. You mean if you like rustic stuff, that's somehow, So late Middle English, from the Latin paganus, which is villager or rustic, from paganus, which is the country and district Latin, the paganus also meant civilian, becoming. In Christian Latin, now this is really interesting because here's where things have morphed. Today, we don't have pure Latin, excuse me, pure Latin. We have this mixture because Latin is heavily influenced by, Christianity. And they took the word to make it to be heathen, one not enrolled in the army of Christ. Whoa. I can hear the coming of the, yeah. Look what that army did to us in the United States. Split us right down the middle, it did. And so here's a perfect example of a benign word, and it is totally benign. How a ideology, a theology, no, anyway you title it, as a religion, came in and took a word and they perverted it. And many of us have been called pagans. I've been called a lot worse here lately. So what it really means is any person holding a religious, spiritual beliefs other than those of the mainstream world religions, which is the following: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Hinduism, I don't know. Their culture goes far back before the Bible. So, but this is it right here. And it's used as a weapon. It's a dagger. You're a pagan. Bad, bad, bad. You're a pagan. Uh-huh. Sure. So it's interesting because we're coming into the Christmas season. True story. Pagans believe spirits are of earth. All paganism is representation of the 4 elements plus 1, which is spirit, B5, thus the pentagram. And pagans believe that trees are spirits that are contained within Mother Earth. But the Christians came along and wanted to make the tree representative of the crucifixion, and thus the chopping down of the sacred tree. And you can see the slaughter. You see, pagans would never slaughter animals. Why? Because I'm guessing I can say that we believe that they have souls just like us. Now, if an animal is going to give its life or substance for the human, well, then there is not this to some unseen God. The Inuit, the Eskimos, and even the Native American people, when they would take an animal, they thanked the animal. They thanked it for its sacrifice. And they said a prayer sending that animal off into its next part of its journey. But no. So I found this interesting. It says that I am a pagan. I am part of the whole of nature. The rocks, the animals, the plants, the elements are my relatives. Other humans and are my sisters and brothers, whatever their race, color, age, nationality, creed, or sexual preference. The earth is my mother, and the sky is my father. The sun and the moon are my grandparents, and the stars my ancestors. I am part of this large family of nature, not the master of it. I have my own special part to play, and I seek to play that part to the best of my ability. I seek to live in harmony with others in the family of nature, treating others with respect, not abuse. Beautiful, isn't it? And this is what this represents. Spirit, the four elements. I like this one. Accusing a pagan of worshiping Satan is like accusing an atheist of worshiping God. Bum, 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 bum. So the pagan perspective, what it really is identifying with the four seasons, all the seasons. And I have one that's even further than this. I like Lilith wearing her shirt today. Because if you lived in a village, what they would call a countryside or country folks, you have to learn to live in harmony with nature. Otherwise, nature is going to kick your ass. And that's what the pagans believe. And the title of this program today is The Ascendancy and Rebirth of Paganism. And as we counter the dogmas of today's religions and begin to let people know that there is something that even their religion has taken from a paganism, it's everywhere. Easter, again, heavily in paganism. I could just go on and on. But when you learn that it's really becoming in balance within the environment that we have been born into, I was meditating and, the thought came to me, I'm spirit. I know who I am, but I inhabit this body. I thank this body. I love this body. This body has a spirit of its own. It has its own uniqueness. And I'm privileged enough to be able to live in it because now I can interface with this realm, this density. And only when you're in, you can describe someone how to play pinball, but until you actually get to play pinball, it's nothing to compare it to. And this body allows me to, as a spirit being, to interface with this realm, which is both, it's far out, good or bad. Pain is just the opposite of what? Pleasure? Some say that pleasure is pain. Some say that pain is pleasure. But nevertheless, and I don't need to play hide and seek with some God. If there really is a God that is not going to play hide and seek. Now, what I do know is that I can see Earth. I know Earth's alive because if she wasn't alive, my body wouldn't be alive. My body is made of the earth. It has all the elements of the earth. Makes us unique. It qualifies us to live into this realm. And the thing about it is, this being called Mother Earth, Gaia, she is feminine. She is of such, the race of beings that they are, these planets. That's Patrick and I, when we did Talking with the Planets, they're alive. We know this. And it is Earth that's taught us. There's no God. None of this nonsense of fallen angels. Earth taught us how to survive, and more importantly, because man is an animal. Man is the only animal that is not suited for this environment. We lost all of our hair, and because of multiple reasons, we failed to fully grasp that where we came from. And again, as you can see here, it's all laid out. Nothing spooky. The pentagram is a common paganism symbol representing air, water, earth, fire, and spirit. That's all it is. Well, you guys using the devil symbol. No, you stole from us. You perverted it. I love this one. Give me a second here so I can see the full thing here. The mountains are my bones, the river my veins, the forest are my thoughts, and the stars are my dreams. The ocean is my heart, its pounding is my pulse. The songs of the earth write the music of my soul. Isn't that far out? The mountains are my bones, the rivers my veins. The forest are my thoughts, and the stars are my dreams. The ocean is my heart, its pounding is my pulse. The songs of the earth write the music of my soul. Far out. Man, it's quite beautiful, is it not? Now I have to figure out where, there we go. So there we go. Something as benign as that. Each year, y'all who live in England, I've not visited this. I doubt if they'll ever lift the pandemic, who knows? But these are brothers and sisters. They're happy folks. They're not mournful. Listen, no matter, let me just say this. Get out of here. Thank you, folks. As he goes over here. No matter who's in office, Earth will always take care of us. We can separate ourselves from technology. We can separate ourselves from that restrictive mindset. And as we're going to read today in a fabulous thesis put by this professor I'll introduce you to, it really clarifies so much. And as I've seen this group grow and congeal and bond, it tells me we're onto something here, because we rise above the din of the white noise. We don't care what your religion is. Just don't come in here and preach to us. We're not going to preach to you. We study knowledge here. It's what we do. And some of that knowledge is heavily flavored into a particular mindset. We can accept that. Not a problem. And we don't get wrapped up. I mean, when I got delivered from politics, hallelujah, brother. I got reborn, got free of that devil. And much more happier about it too. And, because you realize there's something that's going to be constant. This earth will continue to live her lifespan as her species do. And if we can begin to understand, that's how our ancestors learned. They were intelligent people. I think in many cases, they were highly underrated in their ingenuity and their entrepreneurship. That's all I can say. So I'm going to have some tea. It is important to agree to disagree, Bonnie. You're absolutely right. And that's, because that's what makes the world go around. Yeah, it's the truth. So, by the way, I want to bring out again, this is Jargo, and which is Karen. Now, her mother is going in today for a biopsy. They have already told her that she has cancer and that she has to follow this up today. She's in pain and was taken to the hospital and given a morphine drip. It's in her lymph node system. So, folks, Karen's husband came to her and said, and, we're standing with y'all. It's hard. It really is. It's difficult to see those we love to be attacked. And listen, I believe that healing can take place no matter where. So we're just all going to just think of Karen's mother-in-law, and we're going to just keep her, just picture her. And if anything, just cover her with your own light, just see her and just see your own light covering her. And that light can be peace, it can be healing, it can be joy. Um, it says, laughter doeth the heart as a good medicine. So I would recommend, Karen, that you and your husband and your mother-in-law, and I don't know the rest of the family structure there, but I would suggest that you invest in a therapy of 30 days of laughter. The stories are out there. You can fact check me on this, of people laughing themselves to health. Beautiful new bodies, laughing. Laughter, if you're not laughing every day, then you're doing the opposite. And you don't want to be frowning. Turn the frown upside down. And so what I sent her was joy, pleasantness, delight. Because, when that penetrates our body, it activates our bodies again. Our bodies are spirits, folks. The body has a spirit of its own, and it's allowing us the journey. And, even the bad times, when I went through the meningitis and the Lyme's disease, both at the same time, um, my body shut down. My spirit, I guess, left my body. I was in a coma. I don't recall anything other than it was dark. And, but any case, when I learned the secret of just, it's the highest form of sex magic that there is loving your body, being intimate with your body. It's true. So, there we go. We love you, Karen, and give us an update on it. All right. Tomorrow I will be with Miss Trina. Yes, I saw that. Someone said, it's amazing what puppies and kittens will do. It triggers. I mean, they're finding in a lot of the cancer therapies, particularly where pain management is concerned, making the body begin to produce its own I just forgot it. I had it right at the tip of my tongue. I'll think of it here in a second. But in any case, the stimulation of a pet, an animal, just the petting is remarkable. It's great therapy. And so, yeah, that's what we do here. And, you know, We stand together. We do. That's how that's how we roll. All right. So let's check this out. It's a really, really good. I have this, and we're only going to do this one chapter. We're not going to read the whole thing. We're just going to kind of do the unabridged edition. This is by Dr. Christine Hoff Kramer, instructor, Department of Theology and Religious History, Cherry Hill Seminary, South Carolina. This is her thesis, and this is on paganism. In this one, it's chapter 9, by the way. This is the pagan traditions, basically sacralizing the body. And ye shall be free from slavery. And as a sign that ye are really free, ye shall be naked in your rights, and ye shall dance, sing, feast, make music, and love, all in my praise. I, who am the beauty of the green earth, and the white moon among the stars, and the mystery of the waters, and the heart's desire, calls unto thy soul. Let me worship be within the heart that rejoiceth. For behold, all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. This is from the Wiccan Liturgy, The Charge of the Goddess by Doreen Valentine. All acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. This powerful statement of the holiness of embodiment has drawn many people to contemporary pagan traditions since the middle 20th century. There is a rebirth taking place, folks. Listen, the human being is designed to have that intimacy of the spirit. And if we devoid ourselves of that intimacy, it just leads to a whole lot of crap. It says, when Wicca reached the United States in the 1960s and mixed with the American feminist, environmental, and gay rights efforts, a countercultural religious movement was born that continues to attract sexual minorities and others seeking a religion that sacralizes the body and sexuality. Today, pagan communities are much more accepting of marginalized expressions of sexuality and gender than most mainstream religions. With its reputation for radical sex and body positivity, contemporary paganism has often been praised for empowering women and lesbians, gay, bisexuals, transgenders, and queers, people as individuals, as leaders. In most pagan traditions, people of all genders and sexualities can become clergy, and many communities have developed blessings for same-sex and polymorphs, multi-partner relationships. Many pagans are also at least tentatively accepting of BDSM, bondage, domination, submission, and sadomasochism. Yeah, you know what the word is. I can't say it, which is seen as a tool for esoteric spiritual practice and a potentially healthy erotic activity. Hey, if you don't think it's all about sex, I mean, it's just the wrong way. Now, she goes on to talk about the embodiment is more than just sexuality. Like others in the English-speaking world, pagans associate embodiment strongly with sensuality or sexuality. Many see sexuality as central to their identity, something that reveals a core truth of their spiritual selves. Yet religious studies scholars Megan Goldwyn points out that the very notion of a sexual identity only goes back to the 19th century in thinking sex in American religions. Goldwyn emphasizes that the oversignification of sexuality is both typical and contemporary Westerners and relatively new. Our culture's obsession with sexual matters, including publicized aspects such as reproductive rights, same-sex marriage, are often overshadowed by equally weighty issues of international relations, environment, and economics, etc. You can understand. As Goldwyn states, scholars also perpetrate this trend by emphasizing sexuality over aspects of embodiment, such as race, age, health, location, material condition of life. Now, she goes to write, paganism is more than Wicca. It says, historically, pagan has had a variety of meanings. In its vernacular usage previous to the contemporary pagan movement, it is most commonly referred to indigenous or pre-Christian religions. The term ultimately derives from the Latin, as we saw, paganus, which is in ancient times could mean either non-Christian or country dweller. Contemporary pagans have embraced the word as a uniting term for those seeking to revive or reconstruct ancient indigenous religions. Isn't it amazing how there is something within our collective species that keeps drawing us back to something that was before Christianity, before Islam, before Judaism, before all of them? It's interesting. Additionally, nature-focused pagans have interpreted country dweller as one who follows country ways. In other words, ways of life based on natural agricultural cycles. In reality, paganism to the Romans was likely derogatory, meaning something like a redneck. But even this meaning has been appealing to some pagans today, especially those distancing themselves from what they perceive as consumer culture's excesses. It's a fact. Materialism is what is really the dominant religion of the modern era. It supersedes all the other religions, but all the world religions hitch a ride on it. Why? It's the money, baby. It's the gold. It's the oil. It's the diamonds, you know? Mm-hmm. See, gold, oil, diamonds. If we abbreviate that, we have what? We have God. Oh my God. We have God. Gold, oil, diamonds. Who is a pagan? A majority of the communities that self-identify as contemporary pagan or sometimes neo-pagan are mostly English-speaking, white middle-class urban groups within the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and in Australia, in which Wicca has a significant influence. Brazil also hosts a large community of non-English speaking Wiccans and goddess worshippers. We're going to look more into this one. I know I have subscribers that are in Brazil. If you have any connection to any of the churches or any of the beliefs for the goddess, let me know, please. And there are many smaller Wiccan communities around the world. Attempts to define pagan in terms other than self-identity are always contentious. For example, although some practitioners of Afro-Caribbean traditions such as Haitian voodoo, New Orleans voodoo, Sanafra, and I think that's Candomblé, consider themselves to be pagan. And some self-identified pagans seek out and study these traditions. Others reject the label because of the association with what they see as oppressive white capitalist culture. Bam. For recent research, she recommends you can actually go to Hutchins and Williams, and she actually puts on a note. For further complicating the issue of pagan identity are rivals of native religions occurring in Northern Europe and Eastern Europe, the Baltic states, and other parts of the former Soviet Union. Though these groups may use the term pagan for themselves when writing in English, some define paganism as inherently nationalistic or tribal. These practitioners are sometimes dismissive towards the contemporary pagan movement, which they see as a commodified and detached from any particular land or ethnic culture. these international paganisms are difficult to make generalizations about, both because they are rooted in distinctive national contexts and because the body of English language research about them is still relatively small. You see, it's interesting, as you know, and I hope if you want this, I'll be more than happy. You can also get it over on academic.edu. Because you should. When you read this, it's quite remarkable to see what's happening. I don't know if it's going into the age of Aquarius, but it certainly seems that we're trying to identify where is the roots of this, and she gets into it very well here. She says, in spite of this diversity, we will be focusing on the self-described English-speaking pagans. And in that, she writes, certain attitudes appear frequently among pagans. It is fair to say that most pagans will hold most of them. These commonalities include a belief that the divine is immanent, fully present in the material world, and the nature, the body, and the sexuality are sacred. 2, the practice of honoring multiple deities, sometimes as separate beings, and sometimes as archetypes or aspects of a goddess or a god or both. 3, trust in personal experience as a source of divine knowledge. That one really hit me when I said, yeah. Complex ritual practice, which may include extensive liturgies, dancing, drumming, making offerings, building altars, and more. Actually, I had a dream last night. I was telling my wife it was a bizarre dream because, and I won't get into it, but I was supposed to be building an altar, and I won't get into the rest of it. It was weird. Anyway, reference to pre-Christian myths and traditions or indigenous traditions as authentic sources of inspiration for belief and practice. Acknowledgement of the principles of magic. Yes. Sometimes spelled M-A-G-I-C-K, that's the proper way, to differentiate it from the stage magic or the magic of fantasy fiction. AI. The belief that ritual acts performed with intention can alter consciousness and therefore reality. You know, what we see having today is a ritual. This whole pandemic thing has got ritualistic written all over it. Tells me that we're failing to listen. This doesn't come from anywhere. It can, if it's coming and it's of a thought, it's of an energy, it can be intercepted. Wish the Farside Institute would check into that one. Virtue ethics, an approach to decision-making that focuses on values and relationships rather than inflexible rules. Don't shout me down because I'm, yeah. Yeah. Can we get a high five in the back row? There we go. Finally, religious pluralism, the belief that other religious traditions are potentially as legitimate as one's own. Wow. Imagine that. I mean, right there is enough said. You can just say, if you adapted any one of, you know, what is it, 2, 4, 6, 8 principles, if you find any of that within yourself, within your core structure, well, welcome home. I won't get into this. She gets into the origins of contemporary paganism. What I really want to get to, because it's, by the way, what's happening in the United States, it's the boomerang effect. If you take the Kabbalion and you study the 7 principles, what did you think was going to happen? You can't have the pendulum so swung to one particular ideology, theology, only one way of thinking, only one way of processing. And what happens is that when that breaks, then you have this pendulum effect, and this is what's happening. She writes, in the United States, the Romantic movement spawned the transcendentalism and the anti-institutional intellectual movement that advocated for innate goodness of nature and humanity. So I was a part in my youth with what they called the the Unitarian Church. And it was a far out group. I can say this. I had more sex in that group. Wow. I mean, and I was, it's on the street, but I got to tell you, but it was different because it wasn't just having sex for having sex. I mean, there was a lot of, as I look back on it, some really awakened people. Thank you, Chris. Anyway, there's a therapeutic aspect to paganism. It's something I had not really thought about. She writes, Catherine Albanese describes the nature religion in America, 19th century, 20th century therapeutic religious movements, including New Thought, Christian Science, and others, focused on physical and spiritual healing as the primary goal of their practices. Now, back in the 80s, I was part of a group that was into the Est, and it was weird. I'm glad I went through the experience, but I can tell you it was just weird. And I don't know if any of the rest of you, L. Ron Hubbard, yeah. And I guess in a certain aspect, that was paganism. We didn't see it as that. It certainly wasn't Christianity. But she goes on to talk about some of the therapeutic spiritual approaches that hold that disease is caused by disruption in an individual's natural state, whether spiritual, physical, or both. Believing that a divine life energy is inanimate in nature and in the human body, such therapies seek to restore the body's natural energy flow. That's what Trina does, and many of y'all do, and harmony with nature. Some of these spiritually grounded therapies continue to be used today, including osteopathy and chiropractic, which try to connect the flow of life energy through skeletal and muscular manipulations. Homotherapy, which is used as a model of natural harmony between the cause of disease and its cure, and the natural food movement, which sees heavy processing and the application of chemicals as diminishing the nourishing quality of food. In other words, its ability to transfer life force. That is something Trina, I know you'll be listening, something I'd like to talk about on this. I never occurred to me why they were doing such heavy processing of food. These sons of bitches knew that if you fed a human enough processed food, it would extinguish their life force. Look at it. Its ability to transfer life force. The food that the earth produces for us naturally, that's where it takes place in the soul, the solar plexus. The underlying idea behind these therapies, that all living things share a vital life energy, is generally referred to as vitalism. It's amazing. She goes on to talk about the vialistic beliefs are also informed the practice of naturism or nudism, which gained a following in Europe and the United States in the early to mid 20th centuries. Spending time nude in natural settings was thought to help restore the body's natural harmonies and encourage health. I was in nudist camps. I enjoyed them in the 70s. I mean, it was just the culture. Gotta say, I mean, I know we were young, but I remember a lot of people in, particularly, we used to go hiking up in the Yuba River, right outside Yuba City there in Northern California. And it was about a good mile, mile and a half hike in. But when you got in there, nudity was allowed. And, along with places in New Mexico. Anyway, as I continue to look at my life, I'm going, Steiger, you pagan dude, man. I was locked with a lot of other pagans I didn't know. Who'd have thought? Because, it was only when I got into Christianity that, they shunned the nudity. I never could figure it out. I guess that's why they're so, every one of these mega churches I've ever been a part of and seen all have adultery running around like, why? Well, if you forbid something, guess what? It's naturally going to happen. She goes on, talks about how the rebirth of paganism here in Western esotericism is quite remarkable. And it really is. When I look back and I think about, you had parallel movements, you always had this, the Abrahamic religions here, but then there has always been, believe it or not, a parallel of Gnosticism and paganism. I mean, whether it was Crowley, Fortune, many of you have their books. They were actually, part of this. The schism for what we see today in mainstream religions is off the chart. I mean, the first schism that took place was 1514, and they've never stopped since then. One after the other. Anyway, you can see why this is such an interesting white paper, thesis. Why Wicca? I found this was interesting. Why did Wicca end up at the center of the contemporary pagan movement rather than one of these other groups involved in the same period? Part of the answer is the success of its marketing. Gerald Gardner was the first major publicizer of Wicca. He claimed to have been initiated into a witch coven that was a remnant of an ancient indigenous European religion. The witches, he said, were permitting him to speak about Wicca at that time because they feared that their religion was finally going to die out. During the 1950s, Gardner published several books on the so-called witch cult. His best-known work, Witchcraft Today, 1954, contains a foreword by then celebrated anthropologist Margaret Murray, who lent Gardner's work academic credibility. In the 1960s, a Wiccan initiate named Alex Sanders, born 1926 to 1988, courted the media with even more success. With the beautiful young Maxine, Sanders' wife, acting as his high priestess. Sanders appeared on British talk shows and in a variety of sensualized films on modern witches and magic. He also arranged for publications of his biography and heavily embroidered King of the Witches, 1970. These books, films, articles, and other material made their way across the Atlantic, where they found fertile ground and there you go, an American countercultural revolution of the 1960s and early 1970s. Who knew? Which movements for sexual freedom, environmentalism, women's liberation, and other social reforms already in full swing, a religion that celebrated nature, sexuality, and women's power seemed a perfect fit. Now, I don't talk about this, but I had to do a second thing about my life. So I was heavily involved in all of this. I remember 1971, we did the gay pride parade right down Congress Avenue, right there in Austin, Texas. Had a party that weekend, and there were just a lot of other movements. I mean, we were against the war. None of us wanted to go over to Vietnam. Had friends that went there and they came back messed up, man. And no one really, I mean, the rock concerts that I frequented quite a bit, there was always you always had the children of God. They were always there. They brought food, and, that was always cool. They had the big old blue bus, always seemed to show up. Then you had the Hare Krishnas, and they were groovy people. They really were. You get stoned enough, and I'm telling you, you can really begin to get into a trance. It's a fact. So anyway, who knew? I mean, I didn't know. And here goes to show you something. You can be a part of a movement and not even be aware of it, at least not in, terms of being defined. Although the long reach of Wicca had much to do with its being the first widely publicized pagan tradition, part of its staying power is attributed to Doreen Valentine, the talented, poet who served as Gardner's high priest in the early 1950s. Those were some awakened people, folks. I gotta tell you what. I mean, yeah. As she relates the rebirth of witchcraft, Valentine edited the literary materials of Gardner that he collected, and particularly rewriting passages taken verbatim from the work of the infamous magician Aleister Crowley. She also wrote a great deal of new material for seasonal celebrations, some of which Gardner presented in the public as if it were of ancient origin. Eventually, she broke from her mentor, but not before compiling the best-known pieces of contemporary pagan liturgy today. Now, I don't know was she stealing? It sounds like it. Plagiarizing? No doubt about it. But, she did bring out a certain Gnostic. In her book, The Charge of the Goddesses, she articulates many common contemporary pagan attributes about embodiment. The text is generally recited in Wiccan rituals by a priestess who is embodying the presence of the goddess. In it, participants are instructed to worship nude as a sign of physical and spiritual freedom, as well as to dance, sing, feast, make music, and love as acts of devotion to their deity. Sensual, sexual, and body-focused practices are framed as central aspects of the tradition. The charge is also outlined in relationships between the goddess and the material world. The Wiccan goddess is fully present within nature, but also beyond it and encompassing it. Hear ye the words of the star goddess. She, in the dust of whose feet are the host of heaven, whose body encircleth the universe, I, who am the beauty of the green earth and the white moon among the stars, and the mystery of the waters and the heart's desire, call unto your soul. Valentine. Interesting. So then the question, naturally you have to ask yourself, so is paganism just simply about sex? No, it's not. In fact, I think today, and I'd be love to hear some response on this, I think that there has been a metamorphosis that has taken place, that it's really getting back in tune to the goddess, Earth, the one that does give us life, does give us water. So anyway, she tells, and in fact, as she goes through this whole documentation, she shows how it has worked its way through the culture of our society to where today, here in the year 2020, it's beginning now to take on what I think its original roots were, and that's being proper stewards, proper gods and goddesses of the great goddess Earth. And she gets into further. This is really a book you should read. Check it out. It's really a well-written, I'm going to stop there, thesis. There you go, Zerloff. Yeah, there you go. And I think that's just where we're going back. I mean, we had to get the 60s out. I mean, the 60s was all about revolution, you know, society, cultural revolution. And today, I think what we're seeing is this spiritual revolution, if I'd be so bold to say that, but I think it would be in the proper context, right? That there's this spiritual revolution taking place where the true spirit of the individual is saying, screw this crap of, you know, millennia, thousands of years of the do's and the don'ts. While they're telling you do to don't, they're doing what they're telling you don't. And I don't think there's anything wrong. We blew it in the 60s and the early 70s. We had it within our hands. We had the movement, we had the media, we had the attention, and we let materialism saturate our souls. And it disconnected us from the power that where the ideas and the nurturing was coming from. Learning to live off the land. Learning to live in communes. Learning to live and open your mind to acceptance of others. Realizing that there is no right, there's no wrong. It's just your perspective. So, Alan says, I gave up dating, too much pain. It seems to be a common problem, Alan. You're not alone. I keep saying, those of us who grew up in the late 60s and early 70s, we had it the best. I mean, we really did. It was messed up back then, like it's messed up here. I mean, that's a constant. It was just our state of consciousness that allowed us to see past all of the nonsense. And I dare say that, you know, many of us are going to have to redapt that. What is Bonnie? Maybe both, Bonnie. I think you're right. Absolutely. She says, I think we're living under hypnosis or amnesia. I know the amnesia for sure. And I think the hypnosis as well. I mean, we'll get back. Was there a lack of communication in the 60s that made the movement fail, Darth? No, it was not. I'll tell you what happened. We didn't suspect it. Materialism came in. Folks, think about this today. Everybody wants to be a singer. You got all these crazy ass shows that are completely mind numbing. You know, The Masked Singer. What the hell is that about? But the point is, you know, in the 1890s, no one said, I want to grow up and be a rock and roll star. I'm going to be a singer. No. Why? Because there wasn't no rock and roll. No one had actually invented the electric guitar yet. But something changed. And there was a split. You know, suddenly it was money, fame. You know, everybody wanted to be, you know, Robert Plant. You know, Jim Morrison. The Beatles screwed it up. That's what it was. I mean, go watch A Hard Day's Night, Darth. You'll see what happens. I mean, it was that music. And there are books that are written on that subject that said that music altered the state of consciousness of humanity. I think it did. Not coming back this time. I know. See, this is what happens when you start to read the chat room. You can't do that, but it's almost at the end anyway. So, yeah, we're going to continue to study more about this. It's, but the food aspect, wow. Who'd have thought that's a devious plan? I mean, think about it. You cut off the life-giving energy to the life force. Wow. And then you synthesize it. What the hell does that do? Anyway, Disco Duck. Yes, I liked disco. Disco was fun. It really was. It was a great time. It really was. And you got a really good workout. You really did. So who says that? Adapt? Hey, David, let's get you back on, my friend. Let's get you on. Let's you and I get a show. So glad you tuned in. David, that is really appreciate seeing you. But I'm saying serious. Rock and roll was good to get stoned by. I mean, yeah, I danced a lot, go to the Grateful Dead concerts, but disco, that was a workout, brother. That's all I got to say. See, Ellen, I knew it. Oh yeah. I mean, all those were good days. I'm telling you. Oh yeah. Bell bottoms. This is the best fashion for guys. I don't know why they don't bring it back. Bell bottoms were the best. I'm telling you. Thank you, Isby. All right, folks. I've had fun. I hope you did too. Tomorrow we miss Trina, and we'll always have it. All right. Well, let's do that. Y'all need to go over there. Adapt 2030. We're going to be talking about why you should have what they would call meals ready to eat. Y'all need to start thinking about that. What name of the book are you reading on the program today? It was a thesis. It's just a chapter out of that. Isby, I've got it in the PDF. If you'd like to have it. Yep. Make sure you go over there and David's got good information, folks. The reality is he's ahead of his time, and he is a pioneer in getting people ready. Yeah, me too. So, all right. Much love to all of you folks. Let's see. Only one Grateful Dead concert. Put me to sleep. Well, Spirit Woman, that sucks. Yeah, I mean, go to that. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Much love to all of you. This is a groovy group. Y'all are just the best. I mean, really open-minded, neutral people. I mean, this is what gets us going. Carpenter pants, yeah, absolutely. There was some of those fashions back then that were all right. I mean, they really were. And then we all went and got cityfied, as they would say. All right, everyone, favor to you. Enchante, enchante, enchante. There we go. Lost in Space, much love to you as well, Z. Well, adapt, we all are. But David, I really like to do a show. So let's get together on that and just kind of bring everyone up. Namaste to everybody. See y'all tomorrow. You're beautiful. David Barry, 75. Love you, dude. Deborah Truax, much love to y'all. Tina Rose, good to see you. Paul Joe. All right, everyone. Bonnie, see y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye. It's a